Hey, welcome to the Heroes Half Hour. I'm Hammy and this is Falcraft Cast. Hope you're well and good. And in our hero introduction series, we're going to be jumping in and taking a quick look today as a sneak peek for you at the Lost Vikings, the latest.
Hail, mighty
keyboard warriors, as Olaf shares there. So the Lost Vikings, for those of you not familiar with them, date back to the early 1990s in the wonderful days of Interplay and Blizzard, a three character platformer where you were basically trying to get your Lost Vikings home, they having been abducted by aliens of all things. So a classic Blizzard hero set coming back, and a lot of fun in Heroes of the Storm with the old sort of 816-bit goodness as the logo in the top left there. So the Lost Vikings are a melee specialist, so if you're new to Heroes of the Storm or MOBAs, that means that we're fighting up close and personal with these guys. They're very much in sword and shield range, as you can see from the wonderful kit that these guys have, and as a specialist it means that they have something a little bit unique and different about their playstyle. Specialists in Heroes of the Storm tend to be played in a particular way. They may not.
We've been waiting 17 years for this
as well. So in Heroes of the Storm, specialists tend to have something a bit unique about them. They don't fall into a tank, a support stroke healer, or a pure damage assassin class, as is normal for these kind of 5v5 team games. So the Lost Vikings, you have Olaf, you have Baelog, and you have Erik. Olaf being the big guy, he has a big health, he's quite a tanky guy, as you can see with his shield, and he has good health regeneration. He also charges to slow enemies, so Olaf acts as your tank of the three, and how these three interact and play as a hero we're going to show you very shortly. It's important firstly to understand what each of them are good at and what their abilities are. In the middle you have Baelog, this chap here, very very fearsome. He's got reasonable range. Olaf has got short range, by the way. Baelog is kind of medium range, and then he does area of effect splash damage to enemies.
We've been waiting 17 years for this.
Finally, we have Erik, the small guy at the front with his catapult. He's very fast, very rapid, and he's got the longest attack range of the three. So basically, you've got slow, tanky, medium range, and damagey, and long range. And rapid. So if you think of movement speeds, slow to fastest, and then also ranges short to longest. In terms of damage and various abilities, it's more to do with the way in which they do damage rather than the amount of actual damage that they do. So there are your three heroes. Now the Lost Vikings actually don't start with any abilities. You will not press Q, W, or E, for example, to trigger any particular abilities unless you spec into them with talents, which we'll go through shortly. So finally, their trait is a fast restart, meaning their death time is reduced. These three actually sort of pretty much sum up to have the health of one.
We've been waiting 17 years for this.
Even though Olaf, as the tank, may have slightly more health, these guys, I think Erik probably has the least health, being the sort of rapid running around kind of part of the hero. These guys basically have a health pool that's totted up to broadly be roughly similar to one hero, otherwise it would be slightly imbalanced. You can of course talent to give them more health, make them more survivable, give them shields and similar. So this introduces quite an interesting playstyle for the Lost Vikings. Remember, they don't have direct usage abilities unless you talent into them. They can all be controlled individually, which I haven't mentioned earlier, which makes it them a very interesting hero to play indeed. And all of the talents you can spec into abilities for each of the various heroes in some way or another. Finally, your heroic. Play again. All Vikings are revived and teleported to a summoning Viking. As I've said, they've got about the combined strength of one hero when it comes to a hit pool. That means that respawning them very quickly and putting them together could be very handy indeed. And then longboat raid. Summon a longboat and go on a Viking raid. All Vikings jump into a longboat. The longboat fires and does damage, and you can also have a targeted sort of mortar ability that does some damage as well, which is very fun. So that's our quick introduction to the Lost Vikings. To really explain them properly, what we're going to do is what we always do in these quick intros. We jump into try mode, and whether you're getting into Heroes of the Storm with the Founders Pack, whether you've been in there for a while, or whether you're just thinking about getting into Heroes of the Storm. The try mode is excellent because what it does means that even if the hero is not free to play, you can jump on into a small little, as you can see, it's a one-lane map with some bots. You can have a bot on your team, Malfurion always being the star of these shows, and then on the other team there's Arthas, the Lich King himself, ready to take a pounding in aid of you discovering more about your hero. So try mode, brilliant. Heroes of the Storm, always should use it when you're checking out a new hero. So the first thing I can show you here is if you do a little bit of this, you can see I'm clicking and dragging can see that I can move all of the Vikings as one. Now this is important. Any real-time strategy players, such as StarCraft players, as you can probably hear my clicking, you can see I can move all of these guys individually. The second thing that's good to remember is that if I click on one space, note that due to their movement speeds, everyone is going to be moving there and getting there at different times. If your Vikings are split up, if I click to the middle of this lane here and we watch them move, you can see that very, very gradually Erik is going to get into the league, Baelog will be second, and Olaf will always be bringing up the rear. That can be challenging because remember, if you order them in order of range of attack, you kind of want Olaf to be up front doing your tanking. Baelog has kind of got medium range and he does splash damage with his ability, and finally we've got the longest range in terms of Erik. So if you send all three of your heroes to one spot, they'll arrive Erik, Baelog, Olaf. However, in a fight you probably want Olaf up front, Baelog in the middle and Erik at the back. So that's pretty important to remember when you're moving your Lost Vikings around. You need to make sure that as much as possible they're moving as a group and you don't leave them behind. The other thing that you need to keep an eye on with the Lost Vikings is pathing. Sometimes when you click a particular space on the map, depending on, say for example, if your Vikings are slightly split up and if one of your Vikings is resummoned from your base, they may take different paths when it comes to getting to the particular waypoint that you give.
Of course you need
one
me.
Viking might go one way, one Viking might go, for example, down another lane, and that can be problematic. If you're not watching your Vikings, one of them, for example, wanders down the wrong path and gets shot up by the enemy team. Do be very, very careful how you move Vikings. So this is why the Vikings have a very hard rating. They take a little bit of playing and getting used to, and they can be micromanaged for maximum effect. So that's a rough introduction to the Lost Vikings in terms of their movement, which is very important for them, and also a little bit about how they work together. First things first, let's take a quick look at the talents, and then we'll show you these as we always do in action in trial mode. So at level 1, I'm just going to level up our Vikings. Trial mode, of course, in the shop, you can just level your Vikings straight up to 20, or indeed any hero that you want to test out. Level 20, that will give us access to all talents. So at level 1, as you can see, you can pretty much buff heroes individually with the talents as you go up. So with the talents of the Lost Vikings, there's kind of two different themes. One of them is improving hero abilities. So you can perhaps specialise in a particular hero, make a particular hero very good. You can spread out some improvements in abilities among all three heroes. Or what you can do is, as we said before, get yourself particular talented abilities. So you can see down at the bottom here, instead of having the usual Q, W, E and R, these are all locked. There are no abilities unless we specifically take talents for them, and that gives you a particular kind of playstyle for the Lost Vikings. Instead, you can see what we have here, where you would normally put talented abilities. These let you, by pressing 1, 2, 3 and 4, very, very familiar to real-time strategy or StarCraft players. This lets you, by pressing 1, 2 and 3, select particular heroes and move around by doing that. So number 4, of course, selects all three of them, and will let you move them as well. So using your number keys 1 through 4, very, very useful in terms of moving your Vikings and doing that micromanagement that they kind of require if you want to play them to the best of their ability. So 1 for Olaf, 2 for Baelog, for Erik,
Where do you get these ideas anyway?
all move at the same time. So level 1 talents. Let's quickly go through the talents, give you an idea of what you can do here. So Olaf the Stout, Olaf blocks basic attacks. This is very, very good. Obviously it makes Olaf even more tanky and better at surviving damage. Very good indeed. Spy Games, an interesting talent, this one. Remember that in Heroes of the Storm there aren't really wards, so you can't as a character drop items on the map that will give vision of the fog of war. However, this effectively turns Erik into a ward. After standing still for 5 seconds, Erik becomes cloaked and his sight radius is increased by 75%. So say for example I attack Erik, I could plant him at a particularly useful piece of the map. Say I could go and leave him in the brush on his own here, and then if I took this talent he could become cloaked and he would have bigger sight radius. So Erik could effectively be a mobile ward, giving vision of a particularly important part of the map for my team. Now of course do remember that any AoE damage, any sort of area damage or ground damage will reveal stealthed heroes, so Erik could be vulnerable. If people know where he might be, they might drop some damage on the ground on top of him. But that's one particular interesting use. And why the Lost Vikings? Because you can control them all individually. Could be played in some interesting ways. So for example, I leave Erik as a ward here, and then I take my other 2 Vikings to go and help my team, harass a lane, farm some minions and similar. Finally, Viking Horde. All heroes have this generic talent to a degree. Gather regeneration globes to increase health regeneration in this case. Level 4 talents. Pain Don't Hurt. Baelog's attacks heal himself. Both basic attacks and splash damage heal for 20% of the damage dealt. So remember, your Lost Vikings, although they have reasonable health pools, they are by no means as big as a hero on their own, particularly even assassins. So the Lost Vikings will take a bunch of damage in the early game. You will find yourself, if you're not playing very, very carefully, having to heal up a fair amount. Sustain in this kind of form, very, very useful. Being able to heal yourself up a little bit, absolutely key. It's a sabotage. Erik's basic attacks against structures destroy 5 ammo over 10 seconds. Very, very good. This makes the Lost Vikings a little bit more siegey. It means that they're going to be able to, if you use Erik, very, very quickly deplete the ammo of a tower, and makes you even better at pushing a lane and taking down towers. Finally, Hard-Headed Redhead. Erik gains a basic attack that knocks the enemy away, and the effect has a 6-second cooldown. So again, very good in terms of support and pushing away in team fights. Being able to knock an enemy away is very, very handy, particularly that it's got a 6-second cooldown. It'll happen every 6 seconds. Using this, perhaps if you've got melee heroes engaging with you, means that you can buy some space and time for your Vikings to run away. Finally, Spin to Win. And this is a Q, you notice, rather than 2 or 3, so it's not hero specific. Deals damage around each Viking. It's basically a whirlwind effect. Every Viking spins and does 250 damage to nearby enemies. So if you want to, you can have a Q ability of spinning one of your Vikings in a small area. Level 7, Baelog the Fierce. Baelog's attacks increases his attack speed, so if Baelog is doing splash damage, he can be farming groups of minions even more effectively the faster he gets. So pretty much like Valor's Hatred stacks, an ability that the more you attack, you get increased attack speed, and then you need to keep attacking. If you stop attacking, then the stacks of that ability fall away. Erik the Swift, as long as Erik is moving, he heals 75 health a second, another sustainability. So you can see here a trend that you can pick abilities that get your Vikings' health back more quickly, or mitigate the damage, reduce the amount of damage that they take. So this will let you stay in the field longer. It means you're not going to have to go back and heal up, go back to base so often, meaning that your Vikings can do more farming. Mercenary Lord. Nearby mercenaries are stronger, 50% more damage, so this could make the Lost Vikings quite an effective jungle hero if you decide to go this route. Farm the mercenaries and then push down the lane with the mercenary, maybe take Erik's ammo destroying talent as well. And then your next ability, which is W Jump. I really like this one. Makes all Vikings invulnerable and able to pass over enemies for 1.5 seconds. The 2 ultimates or heroics. Longboat Raid I absolutely love. We're going to pick this one. Play again is really useful and key if you are, say, soloing a lane with the Vikings, or you need to hold a particular area or base. Being able to respawn all Vikings instantly after a Viking channels at a target Viking means that you can effectively have 2 of your Vikings die, throw your heroic, and then get all of them back to life. So in terms of pressing lanes, protecting objectives is very important. Visually it's not going to be the most obvious one here, so I really want to show you Longboat Raid because that's so much fun. Level 13, Hunker Burning Olaf. Olaf does damage to nearby enemies, so that is excellent if we've got Olaf and he's taking less damage thanks to the level 1 talent. If we're in lane and farming minions, perhaps teaming up with Baelog's pressuring faster attack speed talent, then you've got a really nice combination of Olaf taking the damage, doing area of effect damage to minions, Baelog doing more and faster damage to minions too. So quite a good farming talent there too. Not too bad in the team fight as well. Speedrun increases movement speed when injured. Your Vikings are probably going to be low life a reasonable amount of the time. Being able to run faster as them is very useful as well. Impatience is a virtue. Enemies damaged by a Viking's basic attack reduce the cooldown of all Viking abilities by 0.25 seconds. If you can do damage and stay alive, then using all of your abilities more quickly, very handy indeed. Large and in charge at level 16. charge stunning enemies, gives Olaf the ability to stun. That gives you a crowd control, however basic, and of course this will help you in team fights primarily. Do you need to get away from someone who's chasing you? Send Olaf in, maybe sacrifice him, stun the enemy, your other Vikings can escape. 64 kilobit marathon, gain an additional 40% movement speed when activating Go Go Go. Go Go Go, by the way, is your replacement for a mount. It gives you a burst of movement speed, 40% movement speed for 4 seconds. This gives you more movement speed, and then also the Vikings are unstoppable for a second. That means that they are not going to get crowd controlled, they are immune. Finally, Norse Force, that's your E ability. All Vikings gain a shield, and then it's got a varying strength depending on how many Vikings are actually alive. So the more Vikings alive, the bigger your shields is. Nice little shield that you can keep triggering. So you've got a whirlwind with Q, a jump and be invulnerable, and fly over minions or heroes with W, and then the shield with you. So you can also see that if you're not happy with microing, or if you're not happy with specking your individual Vikings, there is a path where you can basically just take talents, and then you can have QW and you can effectively, if you're not happy with moving them all individually or trying fancy techniques, you can just take QW and E and play them as a group if you want to. It's probably the easiest way to start with if you're not done too much RTSing, or if you've not played a hero like this before.
What's
or
the
if you're like me, you're a little bit slower at the old clicking, then this is a really good way to start.
Baelog
Go for
something?
and I would
What
get
you
used perhaps
need?
to using their abilities,
Baelog
using them as a
here.
group. You can, as we've said before, put Olaf up front, Baelog in the middle, and Erik at the back. Last but not least, level 20, which gives you a nice trait, and also the upgrades to your heroic. So Ragnarok and Roll, increased prowess, the longboat can attack 2 targets at once, and the range of its mortar is increased by 100%, and checkpoint rates, any dead Vikings are revived and summoned a second time, 10 seconds later. So if you've only got one Viking left, you trigger your heroic, your other Vikings respawn, you can then do whatever you want, and then 10 seconds after you've done it, any dead Vikings are revived and summoned a second time, 10 seconds later. I don't know if you still need one Viking left to be able to trigger that, but it means you can effectively swarm twice, so very nice indeed. Okay, so that's our run through of talents. Last but not least, we're going to take you and show you a little bit of these talents in action.
Where do you get
in
these
this
ideas
little trial
anyway?
mode. If you want to see these guys in action in a game, then we'll give you a link at the end of this video where you can see us playing them in a game and showing you them in a real life live example against some human players and in a 5v5. Okay,
Choose a
so
talent.
we're going to grab ones that we can sort of show off visually. I would probably always go for a little bit of Olaf the Stout. Olaf surviving is good. Baelog's attacks healing himself. I like the idea of Baelog's basic attacks healing. In fact, we'll show you spin to win, because that's a nice visual one. Baelog the Fierce, I like increased attack speed, jump as well.
Choose a talent.
I'll show you all the visuals.
Always wanted to do that.
Longboat Raid, of course. Burning damage to nearby enemies. I like the look of that. It's nice look. You can see he's got the burning aura around him there now.
That takes
Charge stunning
finesse, you
enemies.
know.
I like that as well. We'll show you Norse Force as well, because showing you all of these would be good. And then finally we'll go for Ragnarok.
Heidi-ho!
Righty then, so we are ready to go. I'm going to press 4, get my heroes in lane. We're going to toggle minions, turn those on, and that will also mean that hopefully our heroes. So welcome to another Fury. So remember what we said. We want to have ideally Olaf up front, we have Baelog in the middle, and then we have Erik at the back. So you can see our Vikings in an ideal attack. That's taking a lot of damage there. You can see if I press W, that's going to show you jump. That's jumping up, floating over minions, and being vulnerable. So at the moment I'm moving these as a group. Remember, you can press 4, you can drag them. If you're a StarCraft player or similar, you can have individual ones of these guys and move them in different ways. So always with I'm going to show you spin to win. So you see if I press Q here, a nice little whirlwind effect there, doing a lot of damage. Very, very good for farming packs. Push up towards this base, let more Fury and Olaf just do their thing. A good time to also show you Norse Force as a Q. So if I hit Q, you can see that immediately with the blue on the bottom you'll get that shield. That lasts for 7 seconds. And Vikings a little bit more durable, a little bit more alive. Last but not least, we're going to see if we can try and grab Arthas and show you the most awesome heroic. So here goes Longboat Raid. Remember that for Longboat Raid, all Vikings who are alive need to be close to each other for it to work. So say if I've only got 2 Vikings alive and they're a reasonable distance apart, I need to bring them together and unite them before I can hit this button for Longboat Raid. And as you can see, I've got a Q ability here, mortar that I can use. It's got actually a very nice substantial range on it. And you can also see all my Vikings come together and loads and loads of fireworks flying out. So I'm going to hit Q for a bit of spin to win. You know, one so you can get a little idea here of how the Lost Vikings can work. Important things to note. And we'll show you this in a separate episode when we show you live in the game. Oh, let's see if I can go get Arthas. Yeah! Arthas always has to die at least once in one of our little hero introductions. So, you can see a little bit about how they move. So, at the moment I'm going to click back in the base, and that's just give you a nice little illustration point to finish this off. Erik pulling ahead, Baelog trudging in the middle, Olaf following up behind.
Yeah, I hear you.
How can you spec and play the Lost Vikings? Well, we've showed you one example-ish here. Take all of the abilities, and if you're playing with them for a first time, I'd very much recommend that you take Q, W and E and get used to playing them just as a unit. Don't try and split them up and separate them too much if you're new to playing this kind of game, or if indeed you're kind of new to sort of playing real-time strategy or something. These are a very StarCrafty real-time strategy style hero. To get the most out of them, and I'm not going to profess that I can, you can very much see people at high levels of play splitting them as groups, maybe sending 2 off to do one thing or to do another, trying to control all 3 at separate points in the map. It's a harassing force. Going to hit the jump there, you can see that it actually lets us close the gap as well. Longboat Raid is just the most fun heroic ever.
That was rather entertaining.
Is this real life?
Oh, killed Arthas. Killed Arthas through the fog of war. So, the Lost Vikings for you then. That pretty much concludes our little wrap up. In terms of builds, you can try this QWE build. I'd very much take all of the activated abilities. I think that if you get used to those and you want to try something a little bit more fancy, then what I would probably look at is trying to decide whether you would maybe go for a lane farming, lane pushing build, in which case what you could look for is perhaps things like increased attack speed, Erik's attacks destroying structure ammo, and the burning aura of Olaf. That'll mean that you do a lot of damage to minions in lane. You'll be very good against towers because you're burning their ammo and making them less of a threat, and you'll have good sustain with Baelog's attacks healing himself, and perhaps going for Erik moving, healing 75 health a second, or Baelog's increased attack speed. Very, very good. The other build that you could potentially look at, if you're happy to sacrifice some of the activated abilities, so when you perhaps get a bit more familiar, we'll be taking a look at a jungling build. Now the reason for this is that Lost Vikings have got a very interesting ability. It would work just as well in a lane pushing build. Nearby mercenaries being stronger, you could also try jungling, and a way of doing that, again, taking hunger burning Olaf, making sure that Olaf blocks basic attacks, sending these guys into a mercenary camp, making sure that Olaf is up front, Baelog is in the middle, and Erik is at the back. I've found that in playing some test games that Lost Vikings are very effective when you set them up, and in the mid stage of the game they're brilliant at clearing camps. You would perhaps think about taking Norse Force or Spin to Win for doing the area damage in the mercenary camps and shielding your Vikings so they stay alive for a bit longer. Baelog! So there's 3 different playstyles of how you could try playing the Lost Vikings. Where these heroes will come into their own is on wider maps with control points where they can help harass on multiple fronts if you're good at controlling each individually. So, thank you so much for tuning in. That was our very, very brief, quick hero guide introduction to the Lost Vikings. A harder hero, I'd say, than average to pick up, but immensely fun to play and very, very rewarding when you start getting decent with them. For a longer guide, please check out this video that we're going to link here. This will show us taking the Lost Vikings into a game, playing them on a couple of different maps and showing you some of their strengths and weaknesses, and what you can do well, and then also some fails due to my play as well, so do check that out. Thanks very much for tuning in to Heroes Half Hour. This is Hammy, I've been Failcraft Casts. If you are on YouTube, please do like, subscribe or comment, let us know what was good about this, what we could improve for you. We only want to make you more content, and for more Heroes of the Storm quick hero guides, have a look at this link just here. Thanks very much for tuning in, take it easy.